The hydraulic fluid is cold against Maya Reeves' calloused fingers as she wipes them on the already stained rag hanging from her belt. The fluorescent lights of Hangar 7 at Nellie's Air Force Base hum overhead, casting harsh shadows across the gleaming titanium body of the F-22 Raptor she's been servicing for the past 6 hours. Every bolt torqued to specification. Every system triple-checked. Perfect, as always. "Yo, mechanic." The voice cuts through the hangar like a blade. Maya doesn't need to look up to know it's Lieutenant Brad Morrison, fresh from flight school, 24 years old, and convinced his silver wings make him a god. "My bird better be ready by 600 tomorrow. I've got a VIP flight and I can't afford any of your screw-ups." Maya's jaw tightens. Her fingers clench around the wrench in her hand hard enough that her knuckles go white. 3 years ago, she would have put this kid in his place with a single sentence. 3 years ago, pilots like Morrison stood when she entered the briefing room. 3 years ago, she wore the same silver wings he's so proud of, except hers were earned through blood, sweat, and 100 combat missions that Morrison can't even imagine. "It'll be ready, Lieutenant," she says, her voice flat and professional. She doesn't give him the satisfaction of eye contact. Morrison smirks, tracking grease across the spotless hangar floor she spent an hour cleaning after the day shift ended. "Yeah, well, make sure it is. Some of us have actual important work to do." He struts away, his expensive tactical watch catching the light, probably heading to the officers' club where he'll regale his buddies with exaggerated stories about pulling G's. The moment he's gone, Airman First Class Tommy Rodriguez appears from behind the Raptor's landing gear where he's been working. "Captain Reeves, why do you let him talk to you like that? You outrank him." Maya forces a smile for the 20-year-old kid who actually respects her. "Because picking fights with lieutenants isn't in my job description anymore, Tommy. Now hand me that socket wrench, the 15. But Tommy's right and Maya knows it. She's a captain, technically Morrison's superior officer. But rank means nothing when you're assigned to aircraft maintenance instead of flight operations. In the rigid hierarchy of Air Force fighter squadrons, a grounded pilot is lower than a flying lieutenant, and everyone knows it. She finishes her checks in silence, signing off on the maintenance log with the same meticulous precision she applies to everything. Perfect. Always perfect. Because if one of these jets has a mechanical failure, if one pilot doesn't come home because of something she missed, she'll never forgive herself. It's the one part of her old life she can still control. The clock on the hangar wall reads 22:47 hours, nearly 11 at night. Most of the base is asleep, but Maya lingers, unable to shake the restlessness that's haunted her for 3 years. Tommy left an hour ago, and now she's alone with 25 F-22 Raptors parked in precise rows, their angular stealth profiles looking like predatory birds waiting to hunt. She walks out onto the dark flight line, her boots crunching on the tarmac still warm from the desert sun. The Nevada sky stretches above her, infinite, clear, scattered with stars that seem close enough to touch. This is the view she used to have from 50,000 feet, looking down at the curve of the earth, feeling invincible. Her hand unconsciously moves to her left shoulder, tracing the 3-inch scar hidden beneath her uniform. She remembers the exact moment she got it, the cockpit canopy shattering during an emergency ejection over the South China Sea, a shard of plexiglass slicing through her flight suit. She'd been lucky. The seat had fired, the parachute had opened, and the rescue helicopter had found her before the hostile patrol boats. But Marcus Chen, her wingman that day, he would have died if she'd followed orders. The memory plays out like it always does, crystal clear despite the years. 6 Chinese J-20 fighters materializing from the clouds. Marcus's panicked voice. "Shadow Hawk, I'm hit, hydraulics failing." The cold, emotionless voice of command. "Shadow 1, maintain formation. Do not engage. SAR is inbound, ETA 12 minutes. And her own heartbeat impossibly loud in her helmet as she realized Marcus didn't have 12 minutes. She'd made her choice in 1.3 seconds. Broken formation. turned her Raptor into a weapon of pure distraction, drawing all 6 hostiles away from Marcus's crippled aircraft. She'd kept them busy, dancing on the edge of disaster, using every unorthodox maneuver she'd ever invented, until Marcus could limp to the carrier deck. It had worked. Marcus lived. She'd saved him. And it had cost her everything. Her phone vibrates in her pocket, pulling her back to the present. A text from her daughter. "Mom, did you really used to fly those?" There's an attached photo, something Emma found on one of her late-night internet deep dives. It's a grainy image from Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, 5 years old, showing a group of pilots in flight suits. One female figure stands slightly apart from the others, her face conveniently blurred by the compression artifacts and distance. Maya stares at the image. She remembers that day, remembers the mission brief, remembers the feeling of absolute confidence that had surrounded her like armor. That woman in the photo believed she was untouchable. That woman didn't know that in 2 years she'd be grounded, disgraced, and forgotten. She swipes the screen dark without responding. What is she supposed to say? "Yes, honey, I used to be someone. I used to have a call sign that made enemy pilots nervous. They called me Shadow Hawk because I could appear from nowhere and vanish just as fast. I was one of the best combat pilots in the United States Air Force. And now I fix planes and take orders from kids who weren't old enough to drive when I was flying combat missions over Syria." The night air is cool now, carrying the familiar scent of jet fuel and desert sage. Maya allows herself one moment of weakness, one moment to imagine climbing into that Raptor, firing up the engines, and feeling the raw power of 35,000 pounds of thrust pushing her into the sky. But that's all it is. Imagination, dreams for a life that's over. She turns back toward the hangar, shoulders squared, ready to start tomorrow's pre-flight inspections. Because that's who she is now, Captain Maya Reeves, aircraft maintenance officer, not Shadow Hawk, not anymore. Ghosts don't fly. They just fix planes and count the days until retirement. But as she walks back into the fluorescent lights of Hangar 7, she doesn't see the classified email that's just arrived in Colonel David Vasquez's inbox. An email with her name on it, her redacted file attached, and a simple note from someone at the Pentagon. "You might want to read this. Everything is about to change." She just doesn't know it yet. The base hospital's emergency notification hits Colonel David Vasquez's phone at 5:23 hours, jolting him awake in the pre-dawn darkness. 3 words flash on the screen: severe flu outbreak. He's dressed and in his office by 5:45, and the situation briefing he receives makes his stomach drop. 12 pilots down, sir," Captain Sarah Chen from Medical Reports, her face tight with concern on the video call. "Confirmed influenza A, high fever, respiratory distress. 6 of them are from the aggressor squadron." She pauses. "They're all grounded for minimum 7 days. Vasquez stares at his computer screen where the red flag exercise schedule mocks him with its complexity. In 48 hours, Allied pilots from Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the UK will arrive at Nellis for the most critical combat training exercise of the year. Generals will be watching. Media will be filming. Foreign defense ministers will be evaluating whether American air power is still worth their alliance. And now he's short 12 pilots. Options? He asks his operations officer, Major Dennis Walsh, who looks like he hasn't slept. Cancel and reschedule, sir. There's no way we can run red flag with the current pilot shortage. We'd be asking our remaining aviators to fly double sorties, and that's not just dangerous. It violates every safety protocol we have. Vasquez nods slowly, his mind already drafting the embarrassing phone calls he'll need to make. But something nags at him, a memory from a conversation 2 weeks ago at a Pentagon briefing. A 3-star general mentioning something about underutilized assets at Nellis, about talent being wasted in the wrong assignments. He dismisses Walsh and sits alone in his office as the sun rises over the desert, painting the flight line gold. His fingers hover over his keyboard, Then type a name into the Classified Personnel Database, REEVES, Maya. The file that appears is strange. Wrong. It's a personnel jacket, yes, but it looks like it's been through a shredder and poorly reassembled. Entire paragraphs are blacked out. Mission reports end mid-sentence. There are commendations with all the details redacted, leaving only the dates and her signature. Her flight record shows 347 combat hours, but the details of those missions are gone, replaced by black bars and security classifications that require clearances Vasquez doesn't even have. But one thing is crystal clear. Captain Maya Reeves was an F-22 pilot, a damn good one based on the fragments he can see, flight instructor ratings, advanced tactical certifications, a recommendation for major that was mysteriously withdrawn, and then 3 years ago everything stops. She's transferred to aircraft maintenance at Nellie's and her flying career simply ends. No explanation, no discharge, just silence. Vasquez keeps digging. He finds a reference to something called the South China Sea Incident, but can't access the actual report. He finds a classified memo from Air Combat Command with her name on it, but clicking it gives him an insufficient clearance error. He finds a photograph from Al Udeid Air Base where every face is clearly visible except one, a female pilot whose features are pixelated into obscurity. "What the hell did you do, Captain?" he mutters to the screen. At 800, his phone rings. It's the same 3-star general from that Pentagon briefing, General Patricia Morrison, commander of Air Combat Command. She doesn't waste time with pleasantries. "Colonel Vasquez, I understand you've been looking at Captain Reeves' file." Vasquez sits up straighter, wondering how she knows what he was doing 10 minutes ago. "Yes, ma'am. I'm facing a pilot shortage for Red Flag, and I noticed we have a qualified F-22 pilot assigned to maintenance, but her file is unusual." That's one word for it. Morrison's voice carries something Vasquez can't quite identify, regret maybe, or old anger. "I can't tell you the details, Colonel. They're classified above your level, but I can tell you this. Captain Reeves is the best combat pilot I've seen in 23 years of service. She's also the most stubborn, the most principled, and the most frustrating officer I've ever dealt with." Then why is she turning wrenches instead of flying? A long pause. Because 3 years ago she made a choice. She chose to save a life instead of following orders. The military doesn't always know how to handle people who think for themselves. Morrison's tone softened slightly. "If you're thinking about putting her back in the cockpit, you have my unofficial blessing. But talk to her first. Really talk to her. She's been carrying something heavy for a long time." The call ends, leaving Vasquez staring at the redacted file with new understanding. At 1100 hours, he sends a simple message to Captain Reeves. "Report to my office at 1400. Come alone." Maya sees the summons and feels her stomach twist. In 3 years of maintenance duty, she's been to the wing commander's office exactly twice, once when she arrived, once for her annual review. Unscheduled meetings with colonels are never good news. She showers, changes into a fresh uniform, and spends 20 minutes making sure every detail is perfect. Her ribbons are aligned with micrometer precision. Her boots are mirror bright. If she's about to be reprimanded, or worse, transferred to some even more remote assignment, she'll at least look professional. The walk to the headquarters building feels like a death march. Airmen and officers pass her in the hallways, none of them seeing her as anything more than a maintenance officer. The wing commander's secretary, a master sergeant who's been at Nellie's longer than God, gives her a sympathetic look. "He's waiting for you, Captain. Good luck." Maya knocks twice, hears "Enter," and steps into Colonel Vasquez's office. It's her first time really looking at him up close. He's maybe 50, with iron-gray hair and the weathered face of someone who spent a career in fighter cockpits. His office walls are covered with photographs, squadrons, deployments, aircraft. The legacy of a man who's devoted his life to air power. "Captain Reeves, take a seat." Vasquez gestures to a chair, then does something that shocks her. He dismisses his aide and closes the door, giving them complete privacy. I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to forget about rank and just tell me the truth. He slides a printed file across his desk. It's her personnel jacket, the redacted version. What really happened on November 12th, 3 years ago? Maya's heart stops. Nobody has asked her that question since the court-martial. Not directly. Not with genuine curiosity instead of accusation. She looks at the file, at the black bars hiding her life, and feels something crack inside her chest. A dam she's been building for 3 years. I was flying CAP, Combat Air Patrol, over the South China Sea, she begins, her voice steady despite the memories flooding back. My wingman was Lieutenant Marcus Chen. We'd been on station for 2 hours when 6 Chinese J-20s appeared from nowhere. They were good, sir. Really good. They separated us and Marcus took a hit, probably a bird strike, but it shredded his hydraulics. She pauses, reliving the moment. Command ordered me to maintain formation and wait for SAR, search and rescue. They said help was 12 minutes out, but Marcus's bird was dying. I could hear it in his voice, see it in his flight path. He had maybe 3 minutes before he'd have to eject over hostile waters. Vasquez leans forward, his eyes locked on hers. So what did you do? I broke formation. I turned my aircraft into a target and drew all 6 hostiles away from Marcus. For 8 minutes, I kept them busy, aggressive maneuvers, unconventional tactics, things that aren't in any manual. I gave Marcus enough time to nurse his bird back to the carrier. And you? I ejected over water when my fuel ran critical, got picked up by SAR, went straight from the helicopter to a court-martial hearing. Maya's voice hardens. They said I violated direct orders, endangered myself unnecessarily, set a bad example for junior pilots. But Marcus lived, Vasquez says quietly. Yes, sir, Marcus lived. Maya meets his eyes. I'd do it again, sir. Every single time. You can ground me, you can take my wings, you can bury my file under classified stamps, but you can't make me regret saving my wingman's life. The office is silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Vasquez studies her like she's a puzzle he's trying to solve. Then he says a single word, a name Maya hasn't heard spoken aloud in 3 years. Shadowhawk. Maya's blood goes cold. Her hands clench on the arms of the chair. That was your call sign, Vasquez continues. Before they buried it, before they made you disappear. He stands and walks to his window, looking out at the flight line where F-22s are being prepped for afternoon sorties. I have a problem, Captain. I need pilots for red flag. I need someone who can fly at the highest level, who won't crack under pressure, who remembers what these machines are really for. He turns to face her. But more than that, I need someone who makes the hard choices. Someone who understands that rules exist to guide us, not to replace judgment. Maya's throat is tight. She can barely breathe. Sir, I'm grounded. My flight status was revoked. Your flight status was revoked by people who valued obedience over excellence, Vasquez interrupts. I'm offering you a temporary reinstatement. Fly for me in red flag. Show me if Shadow Hawk is still in there, or if 3 years in a maintenance hangar killed her. Maya thinks of Emma, of the promise she made to stay safe and grounded. She thinks of Lieutenant Morrison and all the other pilots who treat her like she's invisible. She thinks of the stick in her hands, the horizon in her canopy, the feeling of absolute freedom at Angels 50. When do I start, sir? The words are out before she can stop them. Vasquez allows himself the smallest smile. Tomorrow, 600, flight briefing room, and Captain, don't make me regret this. As Maya walks out of his office, her legs barely work. She's shaking from fear, from excitement, from the sudden, terrifying realization that she's about to fly again. Shadow Hawk is waking up. And the sky will never be the same. Maya doesn't sleep. She lies in her small base housing bedroom, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles, her mind racing through emergency procedures she hasn't practiced in 3 years. Ejection sequence, hydraulic failure protocols, combat spread formations. Her hands move unconsciously through the motions, throttle forward, stick back, rudder input, muscle memory carved so deep it survived the exile. At 2:30, she gives up on sleep and goes for a run on the dark flight line, her breath misting in the cool desert air. The F-22s loom like silent sentinels, and she trails her fingers along a familiar tail number, the aircraft she's maintained for 6 months, every panel she's opened, every system she's checked. Tomorrow, she'll fly one of these birds. Tomorrow, she'll either prove Colonel Vasquez right or confirm every doubt the Air Force had when they grounded her. Her phone buzzes at 500, a text from an unknown number. Heard Shadow Hawk is flying today. Don't let them forget who you are. Marcus Chen. Maya stares at the message, her eyes burning. Marcus, the pilot she saved, the reason she lost everything. He's tracked her down after 3 years of silence. She types back, "I'll try not to crash." His response is immediate. "You never crash. You just make everyone else wish they could fly like you." The briefing room at 600 is exactly as Maya remembers. Rows of chairs facing a large tactical display. The smell of bad coffee and nervous sweat. Walls covered with squadron patches and photos of legendary aviators. But when she walks in wearing a flight suit instead of coveralls, the conversation dies like someone cut the power. 20 pairs of eyes track her to the front of the room. Lieutenant Jake Razor Chen, no relation to Marcus but just as cocky, snorts loud enough for everyone to hear. "You've got to be kidding me. The mechanic is flying." Captain Jessica Nomad Torres, one of the few female pilots in the squadron, shoots Razor a warning look but doesn't disagree. The skepticism in the room is thick enough to taste. Colonel Vasquez enters, cutting through the tension like a blade. "Listen up. Captain Reeves is flying Razor's 6 o'clock in today's sortie. This is a standard proficiency check, navigation, formation flying, basic combat maneuvers. Anyone have questions?" Razor raises his hand without waiting to be called. "Sir, with all respect, how long has it been since Captain Reeves actually flew? Because some of us have been training daily, and we can't afford dead weight during red flag prep." Maya feels heat crawl up her neck, but before she can respond, Vasquez's voice drops to a temperature that could freeze nitrogen. "Lieutenant, Captain Reeves has more combat hours than you, me, and half this room combined. She's forgotten more about flying than you've learned. Now shut up and pay attention to the brief." The mission brief is straightforward. A 2-ship training sortie, climbing to 40,000 feet for basic fighter maneuvers, then returning to the pattern. Simple, safe, exactly the kind of flying Maya could do in her sleep 5 years ago. But her hands shake as she signs out her helmet and survival gear. The life support technician, an airman she's worked with for months, gives her a thumbs up. "Kick ass, Captain." In the locker room, Maya strips down and pulls on her G-suit, the inflatable bladder designed to prevent blackouts during high-G maneuvers. The fabric feels foreign and familiar at the same time, like greeting an old friend who might not recognize you. She catches her reflection in a mirror, older than the last time she wore this suit, harder around the edges, carrying 3 years of ghosts in her eyes. Nomad appears beside her, adjusting her own harness. "Look, I don't know your story," she says quietly, "but Razor's an asshole. Don't let him get in your head." "He's not in my head," Maya replies, snapping her oxygen mask connector into place. "I am." The walk to the aircraft feels surreal. Maya's crew chief, Airman Rodriguez, the kid who helped her in the hangar, is practically vibrating with excitement. "Captain, I prepped this bird myself. She's perfect. You're gonna be amazing." Maya climbs the ladder to the cockpit, and the moment she settles into the ACES-II ejection seat, something fundamental shifts in her chest. This is home. The cramped space, the familiar smell of rubber and electronics, the heads-up display waiting to come alive. Her hands find the controls without conscious thought, throttle on her left, stick on her right, exactly where they've always been. She runs through the pre-flight checks with Rodriguez, her voice steady and professional, calling out each item from memory. But inside, her heart is hammering against her ribs. What if she's forgotten something critical? What if 3 years in a hangar has dulled her edge? What if she gets up there and freezes? "Shadow Hawk, you're cleared for engine start," the tower announces, and Maya's breath catches. Someone leaked her call sign. Everyone on this base is about to hear whether Shadow Hawk is a legend or a lie. The twin Pratt and Whitney F-119 engines spool up with a rising shriek that Maya feels in her bones. The vibration, the power, the barely contained violence of 70,000 pounds of thrust. It's like greeting a tiger that remembers you. She taxis behind Razor's aircraft, following him to the runway, her movements smooth and precise despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "Shadow Hawk, you're cleared for takeoff," the tower says. "Winds 180 at 8 knots, have a good flight." Maya advances the throttle, feeling the Raptor strain against the brakes like a racehorse at the gate. She releases, and the aircraft leaps forward, acceleration pressing her back into the seat. The runway centerline blurs beneath her, airspeed climbing, 80 knots, 100, 120. At 140 knots, she pulls back on the stick, and the nose lifts. The wheels leave the runway, and Maya Reeves starts to cry. Not from fear, not from sadness, from pure, overwhelming relief. She's flying. After 3 years, 47 days, and roughly 1,000,000 moments of doubt, she's back in the sky where she belongs. The ground falls away, the horizon opens up, and the weight that's been crushing her chest for 3 years simply evaporates. "Shadow Hawk, join on my right wing," Razor calls, his voice professional but carrying an edge of challenge. Maya wipes her eyes with the back of her glove, banks right, and slides into formation position. Her spacing is perfect, exactly 30 feet from Razor's wingtip, matching his every movement. The rust is there, sure. Her inputs are slightly overcorrected, her scan pattern is slower than it used to be. But the fundamentals are carved into her DNA. They climb through 10,000 feet, then 20,000, the world shrinking beneath them. The sky deepens from blue to indigo as they approach 40,000 feet, and Maya can see the curvature of the Earth, the thin line where atmosphere meets space. "All right, mechanic," Razor says, and Maya hears the sneer in his voice. "Let's see if you remember how to fly. Show me a barrel roll." It's a basic maneuver, first-year flight school stuff, but it's also a test. Razor wants to see her struggle. Maya doesn't respond with words. She smoothly rolls inverted, pulls back on the stick, and executes a barrel roll so perfect it could be in a training video. Then, because something wild and long suppressed is waking up inside her, she transitions directly into a Cuban 8, a complex aerobatic maneuver that traces a figure 8 in the sky. "What the?" Razor's voice cuts off as Maya's aircraft seems to dance through the air, performing maneuvers that shouldn't be possible in a 43,000-pound fighter jet. She's not thinking anymore. She's just flying. Her hands and the aircraft move as one entity, the Raptor responding to her slightest input like it's reading her mind. She executes a tactical pitchback, a maneuver she invented over Syria, then accelerates to supersonic in a vertical climb that pushes 9 gs. Her vision tunnels to a pinpoint. Her G-suit inflates with bone-crushing pressure. Her teeth clench so hard her jaw aches, but her hands stay steady, and when she levels off at 45,000 feet, she's grinning like a maniac behind her oxygen mask. The radio is silent for a long moment. Then Nomad's voice crackles through, "Tower, who the hell is this woman?" In the control room at Nellie's, maintenance crews crowd around the radar displays, watching Shadow Hawk's impossible flight path. Master Sergeant Grizzly Hayes sets down his coffee cup with shaking hands. Lieutenant Morrison, the one who called her mechanic yesterday, stands with his mouth hanging open. and Colonel Vasquez allows himself the smallest smile. Shadow Hawk isn't just back. She never left. Master Sergeant Robert Grizzly Hayes has been working on aircraft since before most of the pilots at Nellie's were born. 23 years of turning wrenches, replacing hydraulic lines, and keeping multi-million-dollar machines in the air. He's seen hundreds of pilots come and go, the cocky ones who wash out, the talented ones who make it, the rare few who become legends. But when he sees Captain Maya Reeves performing her post-flight inspection on the Raptor she just landed, something clicks in his memory like a puzzle piece sliding into place. The way she moves around the aircraft, not like someone checking for damage, but like someone greeting an old friend. The unconscious confidence in her hands, the slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth, like she's holding the best secret in the world. Shadow Hawk, the name escapes his lips before he can stop it. Maya freezes, her hand on the aircraft's nose cone. She turns slowly and their eyes meet across the tarmac. Recognition flashes between them, not of faces, but of shared history, of a world they both inhabited in different roles. "You were at Al Udeid," Maya says quietly. "It's not a question." Grizzly steps closer, lowering his voice even though they're alone in this section of the flight line. 2020. I worked the night shift, serviced Captain Martinez's bird after you brought him home from that mission over Syria. He shakes his head, the memory vivid. Martinez wouldn't stop talking about you. Said there was this pilot who flew like she could see the future. Said you pulled maneuvers that shouldn't be possible, that you saved his ass when 3 hostiles had him boxed in. Maya's throat tightens. She remembers that mission, remembers Martinez's panicked voice over the radio, remembers the split-second decision to break protocol and engage. It was 2 years before the South China Sea incident that ended her career. 2 years before she learned that saving lives could cost you everything. He said you disappeared, Grizzly continues. That the Air Force buried you for being too good, for making the generals look bad by proving their tactics were outdated. He pauses, studying her face. But you didn't disappear. You've been here the whole time, right under our noses. I've been fixing planes, Maya says. It's honest work. It's a waste, Grizzly says bluntly, and now everyone's going to know it. He's right. By 1400 hours, Maya's name is spreading through Nellie's like wildfire. In the maintenance hangars, crew chiefs huddle around tablets, watching shaky cell phone video someone captured of her flight. In the officers' club, pilots argue about whether the maneuvers were really that impressive or just looked good because expectations were so low. In the squadron-ready rooms, junior aviators frantically search classified databases for any mention of Shadow Hawk. What they find are breadcrumbs, tantalizing fragments of a story that's been deliberately hidden. A mission report from 2019 with an entire page redacted, only the header visible. Emergency Combat Engagement Syrian Airspace. A commendation for valor with the recipient's name blacked out, but the date matching Maya's service record. A grainy photograph from Al Udeid where one pilot's face is mysteriously pixelated, standing apart from the group with body language that screams confidence. The most dedicated researchers find references in forum posts on military aviation websites, veteran pilots sharing stories about a female Raptor driver who could make the impossible look routine. Someone digs up a YouTube video from an air show 5 years ago, where the announcer mentions one of our finest F-22 pilots performing a demonstration, but the video cuts before showing the pilot's face. By 1600 hours, the myth is solidifying into something real. Lieutenant Jake Razor Chen sits in the debriefing room, watching flight recorder data from their morning sortie for the 5th time. The numbers don't lie. When Maya executed that Cuban 8, she maintained airspeed within 3 knots of optimal throughout the entire maneuver. Her G-loading was perfectly distributed. Her energy management was textbook, no, better than textbook. It was instinctive. She flew like the aircraft was part of her body, Captain Jessica Nomad Torres says, standing beside him. I've been flying Raptors for 6 years, and I've never seen anyone make it look that effortless. Razor doesn't want to admit it, but he's shaken. This morning he'd been so sure, so confident that the mechanic would fumble, would prove that maintenance was where she belonged. Instead, she'd made him look like a student pilot by comparison. "Why didn't she tell us?" he asks, adding how uncertain his voice sounds. "Why let everyone treat her like she was nobody?" "Maybe," Nomad says carefully, "because she wanted to see who we really were when we thought she couldn't hurt our careers." The words hit Razor like a gut punch. He thinks about every dismissive comment, every condescending order, every time he walked past Maya in the hangar without acknowledging her existence. His face burns with shame. At 1800 hours, the squadron gathers for an informal brief about tomorrow's red flag prep. Colonel Vasquez hasn't arrived yet, and the room buzzes with nervous energy. When Maya walks in, the conversation doesn't die this time. It transforms. Pilots who ignored her this morning now track her movement with hungry eyes, desperate to understand what they missed. She takes a seat in the back row, deliberately choosing the least conspicuous spot. But Lieutenant Marcus Foster, a quiet weapons systems officer, turns around in his chair. "Captain Reeves, is it true you have combat kills?" The room goes silent. Maya considers deflecting, but she's tired of hiding. 7 confirmed, 3 over Syria, 4 over the South China Sea. Someone whistles low. 7 kills puts her in elite company. There are maybe 24 active-duty U.S. pilots who can claim that distinction. "What was it like?" another pilot asks. "Real combat, not training." Maya chooses her words carefully. "It's terrifying and clarifying at the same time. Everything you've trained for comes down to seconds of decision-making. You don't think. You can't think. You just react, and you either made the right choices during thousands of hours of preparation, or you didn't." "Is that what happened over the South China Sea?" Razor asks, his voice quieter than usual. "The incident the one that's classified." Maya meets his eyes. "I made a choice. I saved my wingman's life. The Air Force decided that choice was wrong." She pauses. "I'd make it again." The room digests this. These are fighter pilots. Every one of them has imagined the nightmare scenario of watching a wingman die while following orders. Maya lived it and chose differently. Before anyone can ask another question, the door opens and Colonel Vasquez enters with a man none of them recognize, a civilian contractor carrying a laptop. "Listen up," Vasquez says. "Tomorrow's red flag scenario just got complicated. We've received intelligence that our adversary nations have developed new electronic warfare tactics. This gentleman is going to brief us on what to expect." The brief that follows is technical and dense, but Maya absorbs every detail. The new tactics involve synchronized jamming that can blind an entire formation's radar simultaneously. The countermeasures require split-second coordination and the kind of instinctive team flying that can't be taught, only developed through trust. After the brief, Vasquez calls Maya aside. "How'd you feel up there today?" "Like I never left," Maya admits. "Better, actually. 3 years of maintenance gave me perspective. I understand these aircraft differently now, not just as weapons but as machines with limitations and strengths." Vasquez nods. "Tomorrow's scenario is going to be brutal. Multiple adversary aircraft, electronic warfare, time-critical targets. I'm putting you as flight lead for Blue Flight, 4 aircraft, including Razor and Nomad." Maya's eyes widen. "Sir, I just flew my first sortie in 3 years. Maybe someone more current should." "I don't need someone current," Vasquez interrupts. "I need someone who can think 3 moves ahead and make the impossible call when everything's going to hell. That's you, Shadow Hawk. That's always been you." That night Maya finds a package waiting at her quarters. Inside is a worn flight suit patch, the Shadow Hawk emblem she thought had been destroyed. A note is attached in handwriting she recognizes. "They can bury the name, but they can't kill what it means. Fly like you're saving my life again because you're saving all of us. Marcus Chen." Maya pins the patch to her flight suit, and for the first time in 3 years, she feels whole. Tomorrow, Shadow Hawk leads a flight into combat conditions. And every pilot at Nellie's will be watching. The alarm shatters Maya's sleep at 3:47, a piercing klaxon that sends her bolt upright in bed, heart already racing before her conscious mind understands why. The base-wide emergency notification system, the sound every military installation prays it never has to use outside of drills. But this is no drill. Her phone erupts with messages. All pilots report 2 operations immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, not a drill. Maya's feet hit the floor, muscle memory taking over. She's dressed in her flight suit in 90 seconds flat, boots laced, gear grabbed from the closet where she'd carefully arranged everything after yesterday's flight. Her hands are steady, but her mind races through possibilities. Russian provocation, Chinese testing, an actual attack. She sprints across the dark base toward operations, and the flight line is already alive with activity. Crew chiefs flooding toward aircraft, fuel trucks racing to positions, maintenance personnel running pre-flight checks at double speed. The controlled chaos of a base going to combat footing. The operations briefing room is packed when she arrives at 3:59. Pilots in various states of dress, some in full flight suits, others still pulling on G-suits over gym clothes. The massive tactical display on the wall shows a map of the western United States and the Pacific Ocean, and Maya's blood goes cold when she sees what's painted there. 8 red triangles, 8 unidentified aircraft, 120 miles off the California coast, heading east towards civilian airspace at high speed. Colonel Vasquez stands at the front, his face carved from stone. Listen up. At 3:41, NORAD detected multiple fast movers penetrating the air defense identification zone. 8 aircraft, military-grade radar signatures, flying in coordinated formation. They've ignored all radio warnings on international frequencies. Current heading puts them over Los Angeles in 43 minutes. Someone mutters, "Jesus Christ," under their breath. Identification is still uncertain, Vasquez continues, but radar signature and flight characteristics suggest advanced fighters, possibly Russian Su-57s or Chinese J-20s. What we know for certain is they're not responding to hails, they're not filing flight plans, and they're not turning around. He pauses, letting that sink in. Here's our problem. 12 of our pilots are still grounded with the flu. I need every qualified pilot in the air in 15 minutes. This is not red flag. This is not training. This is the real thing. Maya feels her stomach drop. Real combat. Not a simulated engagement, not a training scenario with safety observers and predetermined outcomes. Real hostile aircraft with real weapons in real American airspace. Her phone vibrates, a text from Emma. "Mom, I heard alarms. What's happening? Are you okay?" Maya stares at the message, her daughter's words burning into her retinas. She promised Emma. After the court-martial, after the exile, after everything, she promised her 14-year-old daughter that she was done with combat, done with danger, done with the kind of flying that might mean not coming home. "Captain Reeves," Vasquez's voice cuts through her thoughts, "you still with us?" Maya looks up, realizes the entire briefing room is watching her. "Yes, sir." "Good, because I'm giving you tactical command of Blue Flight. 4 aircraft, you, Nomad, Razor, and Lieutenant Foster. Your mission is to intercept, identify, and escort these aircraft out of the ADIZ. Rules of engagement are crystal clear. You will not fire unless fired upon first. Am I understood?" "Understood, sir," Maya says, but her voice sounds distant to her own ears. The brief continues in a blur of tactical details, radio frequencies, authentication codes, backup plans. Maya absorbs it all automatically, her training overriding the fear that's trying to claw its way up her throat. She's done this before. 7 combat engagements. 7 times she's flown against hostile aircraft and lived to tell about it. But that was before Emma, before she had someone waiting at home who needed her to come back. In the locker room, Maya's hands shake as she zips her G-suit. Nomad appears beside her, already fully geared up. "You good?" "No," Maya admits, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm terrified. I haven't flown combat in 3 years. What if I've lost it? What if I make the wrong call and get someone killed?" Nomad grips her shoulder hard. "Hey, look at me." Maya meets her eyes. "Yesterday, you flew like you invented the damn aircraft. Today, you're going to lead us through this because you're the only one here who's actually done this for real. We're all scared, but we trust you." "You don't even know me," Maya says. "I know you saved your wingman when it cost you everything," Nomad replies. "I know you spent 3 years fixing planes instead of flying them and never complained. I know that when you got back in the cockpit yesterday, you flew like you never left." She pauses. "That's enough. That's more than enough." Maya texts Emma back with shaking fingers. "I love you, baby girl. I'll be home soon. Promise." It's a promise she's not sure she can keep. The walk to the aircraft is surreal. The pre-dawn darkness is broken by lights blazing across the flight line, creating harsh shadows that make everything look like a war zone. Crew chiefs work with frantic precision, loading real missiles onto pylons that have only carried training rounds for months. Airman Rodriguez is prepping Maya's aircraft, tail number 4058, the same Raptor she flew yesterday. His young face is pale but determined. "Captain, she's ready. Best bird on the line. You're gonna come back, right?" "That's the plan, Rodriguez," Maya says, trying to sound confident. She climbs the ladder, settles into the cockpit, and for a moment the familiar surroundings calm her racing heart. This is home. This is where she belongs. But when she straps in and starts her pre-flight checks, her hands are still trembling. "Blue Flight, this is Shadow Hawk," she says on the tactical frequency, adding how uncertain her voice sounds. "Radio check." "Blue 2, Nomad responds immediately. "Blue 3, Razor says, and there's none of his usual cockiness, just focused professionalism. "Blue 4, Foster adds, his voice tight with nerves. "Shadow Hawk, you're cleared for engine start," the tower announces. "Current bogey position, 95 miles off the coast, heading 75, speed 480 knots. Time to intercept, 18 minutes. Maya's engines spool up with their familiar shriek. She runs through startup procedures mechanically, but her mind is racing ahead to the engagement. 8 against 4. Not impossible odds, but not good ones either. And these aren't training adversaries flying with safety restrictions. These are real hostiles who might be testing American resolve, looking for weakness. "All aircraft, push to taxi," Maya orders, and the 4 F-22s roll toward the runway in perfect sequence. As they line up for takeoff, Colonel Vasquez's voice comes over the radio, meant only for Maya on a private channel. "Shadow Hawk, you're the most experienced combat pilot in the air. I'm giving you complete tactical authority. Make the calls you need to make. Bring everyone home." The weight of those words nearly crushes her. Complete tactical authority, which means if this goes wrong, it's on her. If someone dies, it's her fault. If this escalates into an international incident, she'll be the scapegoat. Just like the South China Sea. "Understood, sir," Maya says. "Shadow Hawk will bring them home." "I know you will," Vasquez says, and there's something in his voice, absolute confidence that Maya desperately wishes she felt. "Blue Flight, prepare for takeoff," Maya announces and advances her throttle. The Raptor surges forward, pressing her back into the seat with brutal acceleration. The runway lights blur into streaks. At 140 knots, she pulls back and the wheels leave the ground. They're airborne. For F-22s climbing into the pre-dawn darkness at full military power, racing west toward the Pacific, toward 8 unknown aircraft that might be the spark that ignites World War III. Maya's fear doesn't disappear, but as they climb through 20,000 feet and turn toward the threat, something shifts inside her. The doubt doesn't vanish, it becomes fuel. The terror doesn't fade, it sharpens her focus to a razor's edge. "Blue Flight, this is Shadow Hawk," she says, and this time her voice is steady as granite. "We're going to do this by the book. Stay tight, stay smart, and nobody plays hero." She pauses, then adds quietly, "Except me if I have to." At 40,000 feet, their radar picks up the bogies. The distance shrinks with terrifying speed, 60 miles, 50-40. "Shadow Hawk, this is NORAD," a new voice breaks in. "Bogies have split formation. 6 heading your direction, 2 breaking south towards San Diego. Recommend you." "Negative," Maya interrupts. "We stay on the main group. Alert San Diego Air National Guard about the southern pair." 30 miles, 20. Close enough now that her radar warning receiver starts chirping. The hostiles are actively scanning, their own targeting systems searching for American fighters. Then a voice crackles over the International Guard frequency, speaking perfect English with a slight accent Maya can't quite place. "American aircraft, you are outnumbered and outmaneuvered. We suggest you return to base before this becomes complicated." In the operations center, every operator freezes. The hostile pilots are talking to them. This is no longer just an incursion, it's a confrontation. Maya studies her tactical display and sees it. The trap within the trap, the formation designed to separate and destroy her flight. And she realizes something that makes her smile grimly. Whoever planned this has never flown against Shadow Hawk. "All aircraft," she says calmly, "trust me. We're going to look like we're taking the bait, but we're not. Stand by for my command." The distance closes, 10 miles, 5. This is it. The moment where everything changes. At 5 miles, Maya's radar warning receiver screams. 6 hostile aircraft light up her display like a constellation of death, advanced fighters with capabilities that match or exceed her own Raptor. The distance closes with sickening speed. 4 miles, 3-2. "Blue Flight, they're going to try to split us," Maya says, her voice preternaturally calm despite the adrenaline flooding her system. When they break formation, Nomad takes the high pair with Foster. "Razor, you're with me going low. Nobody locks, nobody shoots, nobody does anything that gives them an excuse. Clear." A chorus of clear responses, but Maya can hear the tension in their voices. The hostile formation does exactly what she predicted, splits into 3 pairs, creating a gauntlet designed to separate American fighters and create chaos. It's a classic Soviet-era tactic, updated for modern stealth aircraft. Whoever's commanding these hostiles knows their doctrine. "Now," Maya calls and rolls her Raptor inverted, pulling into a dive that drops her like a stone toward the Pacific Ocean 40,000 feet below. Razor follows, his aircraft tucked tight on her wing. Behind them, Nomad and Foster climb high, taking the opposite vector. The hostile aircraft react instantly. 4 break off to pursue the diving Americans, sensing easy prey in Maya's aggressive descent. 2 stay high, engaging Nomad and Foster in a tense cat-and-mouse game at the edge of space. Maya watches her altimeter unwind with terrifying speed. 35,000 feet, 30,000, 25,000. The ocean rushes up to meet them, a dark mirror reflecting the first hints of dawn. Her airspeed climbs past 600 knots, the Raptor's airframe shuddering with barely controlled violence. "Shadow Hawk, you're too low, pull up." Razor's voice cracks with panic. "Trust me," Maya says and keeps diving. At 5,000 feet, skimming just above the wave tops, Maya does something insane. She pulls back hard on the stick, executing a brutal 9G turning reversal that grays out her vision and makes her G-suit inflate with crushing pressure. The world narrows to a pinpoint. Her teeth clench so hard she tastes blood, but her hands stay rock steady. The 4 hostile aircraft following her dive can't match the maneuver. They're going too fast. Their angle is too steep. 2 overshoot wildly, screaming past her position and losing their tactical advantage. The other two try to turn with her but can't match the Raptor's superior thrust-to-weight ratio at low altitude. "Razor, brake left on my mark," Maya commands. 3, 2, 1, mark. They split like a wishbone, and the hostile formation fractures further. Now, instead of 4 Americans facing 6 coordinated hostiles, it's a series of one-on-one engagements scattered across 50 miles of Pacific sky. Maya's radar warning receiver goes solid tone. One of the hostiles has locked onto her. She checks her tactical display and sees it. A Chinese J-20 fighter, piloted by someone good, closing from her 7 o'clock position. In a real combat situation, he'd be firing missiles right now. Her mind flashes back to the South China Sea, Marcus Chen's panicked voice, the impossible choice, the court-martial that followed. But this time is different. This time she has authorization. This time she has the tactical high ground. This time she's not disobeying orders, she is the orders. Maya pulls into a vertical climb, afterburners blazing, climbing straight up through the hostile's gun solution. It's a move called a displacement roll. It looks suicidal, flying directly toward the threat, but it actually creates the worst possible firing solution for the attacker. The J-20 pilot hesitates for a crucial half-second, surprised by the aggressive maneuver. That's all Maya needs. At the top of her climb, she inverts and looks down. The hostile is below her, having overcommitted to the pursuit. In this position, with the rising sun backlighting her aircraft, she's nearly invisible, a dark shadow against a bright sky. "Got you," she whispers. She pulls through the top, rolling into a descending spiral that puts her directly behind the J-20. Her targeting system chirps. She has a lock, perfect firing solution. The hostile pilot would be dead if this were real combat. But Maya doesn't want to kill anyone today. She wants to teach a lesson. She opens a channel on the International Guard frequency, the one every military aircraft monitors. Hostile aircraft on bearing 270, this is Shadow Hawk of the United States Air Force. Her voice is respectful but carries steel underneath. "Check your 6 o'clock. There's a moment of shocked silence on the radio. Then she hears it, rapid Chinese being spoken in the hostile aircraft's cockpit, clearly audible because someone's stuck microphone is transmitting. The tone is unmistakable, surprise followed by grudging respect. Maya continues flying formation on the J-20 6 o'clock, close enough that the hostile pilot can see her in his mirrors if he looks. She stays there for 10 seconds, an eternity in aerial combat, proving that she could have killed him but chose not to. Then she breaks away, rolling vertical and climbing back to altitude where Nomad and Foster are locked in their own deadly dance with 2 hostiles. "Blue 2 status," Maya calls. We're playing tag up here at Angels 4-5, Nomad responds, breathless. "They're good, Shadow Hawk, really good. Haven't locked us, but we haven't locked them either." Maya checks her tactical display. The picture is chaos, 8 aircraft in a massive furball spanning hundreds of cubic miles of airspace. Razor is mixing it up with another J-20 at medium altitude. Foster is running defensive maneuvers against a particularly aggressive hostile who's trying to force him into a corner. And then Maya sees it, the pattern. The hostile formation isn't random, it's coordinated. They're trying to wear down the American fighters, drain their fuel, force mistakes through exhaustion. "Blue flight, this is Shadow Hawk," she says. "Everyone disengage on my mark. We're going to show them something they've never seen before." "Shadow Hawk, we can't just," Razor starts. "Did I stutter, Lieutenant?" Maya's voice cuts like a knife. "Disengage now." The 4 American fighters break away simultaneously, reforming in a tight diamond formation at 35,000 feet. The hostile aircraft regroup as well, 6 fighters forming up in 2 distinct trios. For 30 seconds, the 2 formations circle each other like wolves, neither willing to make the first move. The rising sun paints everything gold and crimson, turning the sky into a battlefield of light and shadow. Maya makes a decision that's either brilliant or career-ending. She arms her weapon systems, not to fire, but to demonstrate capability. Her radar switches from search mode to targeting mode, and within 3 seconds, all 4 American fighters achieve simultaneous target locks on all 6 hostile aircraft. The radar warning receivers in the hostile cockpits must be screaming. Every one of them is painted, tracked, locked. In a real engagement, they'd all be dead. Unknown flight leader, Maya says on the guard frequency, her voice carrying the weight of absolute confidence. This is Shadow Hawk. You flew well. Your tactics were sound. Your aircraft are impressive. But this is our sky. You have 10 seconds to turn back or the next lock won't be practice. The silence that follows is infinite. In the operations center at Nellie's, every operator holds their breath. Colonel Vasquez grips the edge of the console hard enough to whiten his knuckles. In Washington, generals watch satellite feeds with expressions carved from stone. This moment could go either way, de-escalation or World War III. 5 seconds, 10, 15. Then a voice responds on the guard frequency, older, measured, carrying authority. The hostile flight leader. Shadow Hawk, we have heard stories about you, reports from our intelligence services. Today we confirm they are true. There's a pause and Maya swears she hears grudging admiration in the voice. You are as skilled as the legends say, perhaps more. The 6 hostile aircraft turn in perfect unison, heading west, back toward international waters. Maya exhales for what feels like the first time in an hour. Her flight suit is soaked with sweat, her hands are shaking, and her fuel gauge is flashing angry red warnings. All aircraft, this is Shadow Hawk, she says, and her voice cracks slightly. Form up, we're going home. As they turn back toward Nellie's, the sun fully breaks the horizon, flooding the sky with brilliant light. Nomad's voice comes over their private tactical frequency, awed and exhausted. That was either the craziest thing I've ever seen or the smartest. I genuinely cannot decide which. Both, Maya admits, her voice shaky now that the adrenaline is fatting. Definitely both. Razor's voice follows, stripped of all cockiness. Shadow Hawk, I owe you my life. We all do. That formation split you called. If we'd stayed together, they would have boxed us in. How did you know? Because they tried it on me before, Maya says quietly. Over the South China Sea, 3 years ago, and that time I was alone. The flight home takes 23 minutes. Maya spends every second fighting the shakes, the delayed shock, the overwhelming relief of still being alive. When the California coastline appears, when they cross back over American soil, she finally allows herself to believe it's over. They land at dawn, fuel tanks nearly empty, and the entire base is waiting. As Maya climbs out of her cockpit on legs that barely support her weight, she sees the crowd. Maintenance crews, pilots, support personnel, everyone awake and watching. Colonel Vasquez is there, standing at attention. As Maya's boots hit the tarmac, he salutes her. Not a casual salute, but a full, formal salute that a commander gives to someone who's earned every ounce of respect. Well done, Captain, he says, his voice carrying across the silent flight line. Well done. Maya returns the salute and something inside her, something that's been broken for 3 years, finally begins to heal. She's not the disgraced pilot anymore. She's not the forgotten mechanic. She's Shadow Hawk, and she just reminded the world why that name means something. The debriefing room is silent except for the hum of recording equipment. Maya sits at a metal table, still in her sweat-soaked flight suit, while a panel of senior officers watches the helmet camera footage from her engagement. Colonel Vasquez, 2 generals who flew in from Peterson Space Force Base, a civilian from the Department of Defense, and a stern-faced woman from Air Force Intelligence who's been taking notes for the past hour. The video plays for the 3rd time, Maya's impossible dive, the 9G reversal, The moment she achieved firing solution on the hostile and chose not to take the shot. Each replay makes the maneuvers look more impossible, more reckless, more brilliant. Captain Reeves, the woman from intelligence says, at timestamp 0742, you broke away from your assigned position and initiated an unsupported descent. Can you explain your tactical reasoning? Maya's exhausted, running on adrenaline fumes and bad coffee, but her mind is still sharp. The hostile formation was designed to split us and create individual engagements. By diving aggressively, I drew 4 aircraft away from the main fight, reducing the odds against my wingmen from 6 to 4 to 2 to 2. Better math. You dropped to 5,000 feet over open ocean with 4 hostiles on your 6, one of the generals says. That's not tactics, that's suicide. With respect, sir, it's physics, Maya replies. At low altitude, the F-22s thrust-to-weight ratio gives us a decisive advantage in turning fights. The hostiles were optimized for high-altitude intercepts. I exploited their weakness. The general leans back, something like a smile touching his weathered face. You sound like you've done this before. 7 times, sir, Maya says quietly, though only one where the odds were this bad. The intelligence officer flips through her file, the redacted version that's haunted Maya for 3 years. The South China Sea incident. November 12th, 3 years ago. 6 hostiles, 1 friendly. She looks up. You were court-martialed for your actions that day. Yes, ma'am. And today, you executed nearly identical tactics. Yes, ma'am. The difference being... Maya chooses her words carefully. Today, I had authorization to make tactical decisions. Today, I was trusted to do my job. 3 years ago, I was ordered to watch my wingman die. She pauses. I chose differently then. I'd make the same choice now. The room falls silent. The intelligence officer closes the file and looks at Colonel Vasquez. I've seen enough. While Maya endures her debriefing, the world is exploding with her story. The engagement was tracked by multiple satellites, monitored by Allied forces across the Pacific, and recorded by every radar installation from California to Hawaii. Within 2 hours, encrypted footage is circulating through Pentagon channels. Within 4 hours, it reaches NATO headquarters in Brussels. By noon, analysts in Moscow and Beijing are watching American helmet camera footage showing tactics they've never seen before. But it's the audio that really spreads. Someone, Maya suspects it was an operator in the NORAD command center, leaked the radio transcript. The anonymous recording appears on military aviation forums, then spills over to mainstream social media. Shadow Hawk, we have heard stories about you. Today we confirm they are true. The phrase becomes viral within military circles. Who is Shadow Hawk? The mystery pilot who supposedly doesn't exist, whose file is classified, whose very existence has been denied by official sources. Retired fighter pilots post analysis videos dissecting her maneuvers. Aviation journalists dig through old records, finding fragments and references. Someone discovers the Al Udeid photograph and runs it through enhancement algorithms, partially recovering the pixelated face. Within hours, #Shadow Hawk is trending on social media platforms worldwide. At 1400 hours, Maya is finally released from debriefing. She stumbles out of the building into bright Nevada sunshine, squinting against the light, and finds Master Sergeant Grizzly Hayes waiting with a bottle of water and a protein bar. "You look like hell, Captain," he says with a grin. "Feel worse," Maya admits, accepting both gratefully. The water tastes like the best thing she's ever consumed. "You know you're famous now, right? Internet's going crazy. They're calling you the ghost pilot, the Phantom Ace, all kinds of dramatic stuff." Grizzly shakes his head in amazement. 3 years you worked in my hangar and I had no idea." "I was just trying to forget," Maya says quietly. "Well, congratulations," Grizzly says. "You're officially unforgettable now." He's right. As Maya walks across the base toward her quarters, people stop and stare. Airmen she's worked with for years look at her with new eyes. Officers she's never met salute as she passes. A group of young crew chiefs actually applauds when she walks by their maintenance section. Lieutenant Jake Razor Chen catches up with her near the housing area. He's still in his flight suit too, eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion and something that might be tears. Captain Reeves, Shadow Hawk, I need to say something. He stops, struggling with the words. This morning you saved my life. When that hostile locked me up at medium altitude and I panicked, you were already moving to help before I even called it. You saw the whole battlefield like you could predict the future. Just pattern recognition, Maya says. I've been there before. That's what I mean, Razor says urgently. You've been there before and we treated you like you were nobody. I treated you like you were nobody. His voice cracks. I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry. Maya looks at this kid, because that's what he is really, just a talented kid who thought his wings made him special, and sees herself from a decade ago. Cocky, certain, convinced that rank and credentials told the whole story. Razor, you know what I learned fixing planes for 3 years, she says. That respect isn't something you're owed because of what's on your uniform. It's something you earn by what you do when nobody's watching. You apologizing right now, that's earning it. They shake hands, and Maya sees something shift in his eyes. The transformation from arrogance to humility that every good pilot eventually undergoes. At 1800 hours, Maya video calls Emma. Her daughter's face fills the screen, eyes wide with excitement and worry. Mom! Oh my God, Mom, are you okay? Everyone's talking about it. There are videos and articles and people are saying you're a hero and… I'm fine, baby, Maya interrupts gently. I'm safe, I'm home. The news said you faced 6 enemy planes, Emma says, her voice small and frightened now. They said it was really dangerous. Maya considers lying, softening it, but decides Emma deserves the truth. It was dangerous. It was terrifying. And I did it because protecting people is what I trained my whole life to do. She pauses. But you know what I thought about the whole time? What? You getting home to you. Because you're the most important mission I'll ever have. Emma's eyes fill with tears. I'm proud of you, Mom. I didn't understand before why you were so sad about not flying, but I get it now. You were meant to do this. After the call ends, Maya sits in her quiet quarters and finally, for the first time since landing, allows herself to feel everything. The terror, the exhilaration, the bone-deep satisfaction of doing the impossible and succeeding, but also the weight, the crushing responsibility of holding other people's lives in her hands. Her phone buzzes with a message from an unknown number. Captain Reeves, this is General Patricia Morrison, Air Combat Command. Report to Washington, D.C. on Monday, 900. We need to talk about your future. The Air Force owes you an apology and a lot more. Well done, Shadow Hawk. Maya stares at the message, her heart pounding. Monday is 3 days away. 3 days until her life changes again, hopefully for the better this time. That night, she lies awake watching moonlight paint patterns on her ceiling, listening to the distant sound of F-22 engines on the night training schedule. Pilots she trained today, flying patterns she helped develop, protecting skis she nearly died defending. Somewhere in the darkness, she hears footsteps outside her door. Then voices, young voices, whispering. When she peeks through her window, she sees them. A group of airmen, junior enlisted personnel who work maintenance. They've left something on her doorstep. In the morning, she finds it. A hand-painted wooden sign that reads Shadow Hawk's Hangar with careful lettering and a drawing of a raptor in flight. Maya picks it up, and for the first time in 3 years, she smiles without any sadness behind it. The ghost is gone, the legend is real. And Shadow Hawk is finally coming home. Washington, D.C. in January is cold and gray, a world away from the Nevada desert. Maya stands in the Pentagon's earring corridor, wearing her dress blues with every ribbon precisely aligned, waiting to be called into a conference room where her fate will be decided. Again. 3 days have passed since the Pacific engagement, 3 days during which her life has become unrecognizable. The video footage went public, sanitized, but compelling. Major news networks ran stories about the mysterious pilot known as Shadow Hawk. Aviation Week published a 10-page analysis of her tactics. Congressional defense committees requested briefings. And somewhere in the classified channels of military justice, someone decided it was time to fix an old wrong. The door opens. A lieutenant colonel she doesn't recognize gestures her inside. "Captain Reeves, they're ready for you." The conference room is intimidating. A long mahogany table surrounded by senior officers whose combined rank could fill a small air force. General Patricia Morrison sits at the head, her 3 stars gleaming. Beside her are 2 brigadier generals, a JAG officer who looks vaguely familiar, and a civilian from the Secretary of the Air Force's office. "Captain Reeves, please sit," Morrison says, her voice formal but not unkind. Maya sits, back straight, hands folded on the table. She's been through this before, the review boards, the questioning, the cold dissection of split-second decisions made in combat. But this time feels different. Morrison opens a thick folder, Maya's complete file, including sections she's never been allowed to see. "Captain Reeves, we've spent the past 72 hours conducting a comprehensive review of the incident that occurred over the South China Sea on November 12th, 3 years ago. We've interviewed witnesses, consulted with tactical experts, and analyzed new intelligence regarding the hostile forces you engaged that day." Maya's heart hammers, but she keeps her face neutral. "We've also reviewed your recent actions over the Pacific," Morrison continues. "Specifically, your decision-making under pressure, your tactical innovations, and your ability to achieve mission success while minimizing risk to your pilots and preventing international escalation." The JAG officer, Maya recognizes him now as Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks, who sat on her original court-martial board, speaks next. His voice carries unmistakable regret. "Captain Reeves, 3 years ago, this office made a determination that your actions constituted insubordination and reckless endangerment. We focused on the fact that you disobeyed a direct order. We failed to adequately consider the context, that following that order would have resulted in the certain death of your wingman, Lieutenant Marcus Chen." He pauses, choosing his words carefully. "In light of recent events and upon thorough review, we have concluded that your actions on November 12th were not insubordinate, they were heroic. You made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. You saved a life at great personal cost, and the United States Air Force responded by punishing you for it." The words hang in the air. Maya feels tears prickling her eyes but refuses to let them fall. Morrison leans forward. "Captain Reeves, your court-martial is being overturned. Effective immediately, all adverse actions are expunged from your record. You are hereby reinstated to full flight status with back pay, full seniority restoration, and a formal apology from the United States Air Force." Maya's breath catches. 3 years. 3 years of exile, of being invisible, of watching other pilots fly while she turned wrenches. And now, in one sentence, it's over. But Morrison isn't finished. "Furthermore, we're offering you a position commensurate with your experience and demonstrated abilities. How would you feel about running the fighter weapons school at Nelly's? Training the next generation of combat aviators to think strategically, act decisively, and understand that the mission is about more than just following orders. It's about bringing everyone home." Maya's vision blurs. The Fighter Weapons School, the Air Force's most prestigious training program where the best pilots learn to become better. It's a position she never dreamed she'd be offered, let alone deserve. Her voice cracks. She clears her throat and tries again. "I don't know what to say, ma'am." "Say yes," Morrison says with the ghost of a smile. Shadowhawk belongs in the sky, but she also belongs in the classroom, making sure we never lose another pilot to bureaucratic thinking. Yes, ma'am, Maya says, and this time she doesn't fight the tears. Yes. 6 months later, Maya stands in front of a classroom at Nellie's filled with the Air Force's most elite pilot candidates. They're the best of the best, hand-selected from squadrons worldwide, each one convinced they already know everything worth knowing about flying. She recognizes that arrogance. She wore it herself once. Good morning, she begins. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Maya Reeves, call sign Shadow Hawk. Before we begin your advanced tactical training, I want to tell you a story about a lesson I learned in a maintenance hangar. Confused glances ripple through the classroom. A captain in the front row raises his hand. Sir, did you say maintenance hangar? I did. For 3 years I fixed the aircraft you're about to fly. I replaced hydraulic lines, torqued bolts, calibrated radar systems, and listened to pilots treat me like I was invisible. She pauses, letting it sink in. And it was the most valuable education I've ever received. She clicks her remote and a photo appears, Maya in grease-stained coveralls, standing beside an F-22. When you're a pilot, you see the aircraft as an extension of yourself, a weapon to be wielded. When you're a mechanic, you see it as a machine with 10,000 ways to fail. You learn respect. You learn humility. You learn that the person who torques your bolts is just as important to mission success as the general who signs your orders. Another photo, the Pacific engagement captured from a satellite. 6 months ago, I faced 8 hostile aircraft with only 3 wingmen. We survived not because I'm a better pilot than the adversaries, though I like to think I held my own, but because I understood my aircraft better than they understood theirs. I knew exactly how much stress the airframe could handle because I'd replaced those stress panels. I knew the limits of the radar because I'd calibrated it dozens of times. She walks to the front of the classroom, her voice growing more intense. This course is going to break you down and rebuild you, not just as pilots but as warriors who understand that every person on this base is essential. The mechanic who checks your aircraft, the loadmaster who arms your weapons, the meteorologist who briefs you on weather. They're not support personnel, they're your team. Treat them with respect or you'll never be half the pilot you could be. The students are riveted now, leaning forward, the arrogance replaced with genuine curiosity. Now, Maya continues, let's talk about the South China Sea incident. You've all read the sanitized version in your classified briefings. I'm going to tell you what really happened and why I spent 3 years paying for a decision I'd make again in a heartbeat. She spends the next 2 hours teaching, not just tactics and maneuvers but judgment and ethics, when to follow orders and when to question them, how to make impossible decisions in microseconds, why bringing everyone home matters more than mission success statistics. After class, a young female lieutenant approaches hesitantly. She's the only woman in a squadron of 18 students, and her body language screams the weight of that isolation. Colonel Reeves, I'm Lieutenant Sarah Patel, I just wanted to say. She struggles with the words. I'm the only woman in my squadron back home. Some days it feels like I have to work twice as hard to get half the respect. Your story, what you went through and how you came back, it helps me remember why I'm doing this. Maya recognizes that look in the young woman's eyes. She's seen it in her own mirror. Lieutenant Patel, let me tell you something my daughter taught me. Being underestimated is a tactical advantage. Let them think you're just another pilot. Then show them what you're really capable of. And remember, the people who underestimate you, they're telling you everything you need to know about their own limitations. That evening, Maya walks the Nellie's flight line with Master Sergeant Grizzly Hayes. He's been promoted to Superintendent of Maintenance, a recognition of his expertise that was long overdue. They move between the parked Raptors, and Maya trails her hand along familiar surfaces. You miss it, Grizzly asks, the wrench turning. Maya considers the question honestly. Some days, yes, it was simpler. A problem had a clear solution, You worked hard enough you could fix anything. And now I fix pilots instead of planes, she smiles. Harder work but maybe more important. They stop beside tail number 4058, the Raptor Maya flew during the Pacific engagement. It's been repainted with a small emblem near the cockpit, a shadow hawk in flight, unofficial but tolerated. You know what's funny, Grizzly says. The kids working this bird now, they treat it like it's sacred. They're more careful, more thorough, because Shadow Hawk flew it. That's not about me, Maya says. That's about them taking pride in their work. Maybe, Grizzly agrees. Or maybe you showed them that mechanics and pilots aren't different species, that we're all just people trying to do our jobs right. Weeks turn to months. Maya's reputation grows, not from the Pacific engagement, but from the pilots she trains. They carry her lessons to squadrons worldwide. Lessons about humility, about seeing the complete picture, about making hard choices with courage and integrity. The name Shadow Hawk evolves. It's no longer just a call sign for one exceptional pilot. It becomes a philosophy, a standard, a reminder that excellence can survive exile and dignity can outlast disgrace. On a Saturday afternoon, Maya takes Emma to the observation deck overlooking the flight line. Her daughter is 15 now, suddenly interested in physics and mathematics, asking questions about thrust-to-weight ratios and aerodynamic principles. "Mom, do you think I could be a pilot someday?" Emma asks, watching F-22s take off for an afternoon training sortie. Maya pulls her close. "Baby girl, you can be anything you want. But remember, it's not the plane that makes you extraordinary. It's not the uniform or the rank or even the call sign. It's the choices you make when everything's falling apart and nobody's watching. It's deciding to do the right thing even when it costs you everything." "Is that what Shadow Hawk means?" Emma asks. Maya watches the Raptors climb into the brilliant Nevada sky, their afterburners painting fire against the blue. She thinks about the journey, from promising pilot to disgraced officer to invisible mechanic to legendary instructor. Every painful step necessary, every hardship forging her into someone stronger. "Shadow Hawk means you never forget who you are," Maya says. "It means that no matter how many times they try to ground you, no matter how invisible they make you feel, you keep being excellent. You keep doing the right thing. And eventually, the truth has a way of rising." Emma grins. "That's pretty badass, Mom." "Yeah," Maya agrees, thinking about 3 years in coveralls, about saved lives and second chances, about the long road from exile to redemption. It really is. As the sun sets over Nellis Air Force Base, the newest generation of fighter pilots runs pre-flight checks on aircraft maintained by crews who work with precision and pride, taught by the example of a woman who proved that how you treat people in their lowest moment defines who you are in your highest. The legend of Shadow Hawk lives on, not in viral videos or dramatic engagements, but in quiet truths. That excellence transcends rank, that character reveals itself under pressure, that the most important battles are often the ones fought within ourselves. And sometimes, the greatest victory is simply becoming yourself again.